Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Today I have a special guest. I have Martin Theis. Martin is a spiritual teacher who focuses on the art of shamanic journeys and the application of the medicine wheel, a holistic approach to finding well-being, balance, and inner peace in life. His coaching practice, Light Trails, assists others on their journey from suffering to joy. Martin helps others through presence, in combination with his shamanic education. Welcome, Martin. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you for being here and for inviting me.
So you and I, we're going to dive into the world of shamanic journeying and how we connect with our spirit within. And so, Martin, you live life with purpose, and I do as well. I think this has been a journey in my own life that I have began to recognize that I was not living my life with purpose for a really long time. And so you live with a very strong set of values, and it's basically a result of all the journeys and experiences that you've had throughout your life. And so let's dive a little bit into what is a shamanic journey and how did you learn about the healing aspects?
Can be so many different things, right? And it's over time in many podcast interviews, it feels to me it's important to say that most of the shamanic journeys that people might have heard about are plant-based or some kind of psychotropic where we have experiences with the aid of medicine, some kind of medicine, plant medicine. And there is a shamanic journey without that. And so I am on the latter path pretty much by using my drum. It could be done with a rattle, or you even experienced journeyers could just do that without any kind of aid, right? Because they know their way. But I'm using the drum. And what happens is people are laying down and we're doing an exercise to relax and then to really step consciously from something that is called in core shamanism non-ordinary reality, or the reality that we're actually talking about right now, that more physical reality, into a non-ordinary reality where the limits of time and space and gravity and all these things that we have in this physical experience are freed, right? Similar to a dream state. And the only difference to a dream and compared to a shamanic journey is that we're more conscious. We are depending on the depth of the journey that we're in, more or less connected to our body, and we still feel it somewhere. Oftentimes, sometimes we're completely somewhere else in that non-ordinary reality, and we don't really feel that body, but the connection is there. We can always return. It's kind of like an immediate exit option that we would have. If something would arise that we really feel uncomfortable with, we could always, and we know we can always go back, right? That is a big difference to once I'm on an ayahuasca trip or experience, I'm in for the whole ride, and I will have to endure in this experience until it is over, right? And so the shamanic journeys that I facilitate are more in the realm of I'm able to be a little bit more in charge, which is what appeals a lot of the people who are afraid. And we spoke about this really shortly before we joined this call here. If we have suppressed things, if we have certain things that we know kind of intuitively that we're holding a lid on, then knowing that we're in charge and that we can decide. It's not like once I open it up, it's just like I'm helpless and I'm just, I don't know, I need to take whatever is coming, right? So that as the framework. And then the shamanic journey is getting in touch with our subconscious on one level. It is the inner images that come up, the inner sensations, the feelings. And it is also being in this conscious collective or collective consciousness. Also, it is not only our own things, but also we are tapping into nature, into the collective consciousness, and therefore receiving guidance from all kinds of things. Like it could be from the natural realm, trees, animals, water elements, everything like that. And or we have spirit guides, we have our totem animals, which is an animal again, but a little bit different. And so there are all these guides who are able to show us or give us perspective, but also answers to questions, intentions that we have. So it's really quite an adventure of discovery, you know, to be really curious and to discover this inner realm in this other kind of reality.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. And I'm glad that you brought up there's different types of shamanic journeys, because I have had several guests on my show to talk about psychedelics and ayahuasca. And personally, I have not dabbled in those areas when it comes to shamanic journeying. I am like you, I use the music, the sound of the drum. And even in my quantum healing hypnosis sessions, people have said to me, I felt like I was on a shamanic journey, but I'm not even using the drum. So, Martin, let's talk about the drum. I will say the first time I went to a sound healing bath here in Washington State, and one of the practitioners had come over my body with the drum. And I'm telling you, the amount of emotions that were coming out of me, I was seeing flashbacks of myself using the drum and hearing the drum, and all of this emotion came bubbling to the surface. That after the sound bath, I asked him, could you use the drum on me a little bit more? I was feeling this very deep connection with the drum. And I know that you probably have more information about why shamans use the drum and what does that represent in the shamanic journey.
Yeah, that's a really good question because my teacher, when I got introduced to this, said that the drum is the canoe that we use to pass over into non-ordinary reality, and that
Mm,
the drum beat is the paddle. And so
I
we
got
have
goosebumps.
we have this sound vibration that is able, and that is the magical part about the drum or the rattle. It holds our body in this reality. It's kind of like that physical element that is kind of like giving us the connection to our body, but then on the sound waves or on that other more ethereal element of the drum beat and of the drum, our souls or that part of us that journeys somewhere else is elevated or just kind of like floating with that canoe to these other places, right? So that is what I think is one part of this. And then the other part is I feel the drum is such a old way for, like, when I feel like the drum and the fire are probably things that go all the way back in human history, in human experience, right? And so um, I used to play the West African drum when I was younger, and when all the people are sitting around the fire drumming the drum, and people are dancing in front of the fire, oftentimes children would be on the backs of their mothers or fathers, or maybe they would be still in the belly. And so we as human beings have been with this very tribal sound for since we can remember, in a sense, and even further than that, right? So I feel like this old way connecting us with this really essence of our existence, in a sense, and that is also a part why we relate so much to the drum, because it's just it's the heartbeat pretty much, right? It is when we are as unborn beings in the womb, we hear that heartbeat, and that is probably what also is that connection to life, right? Hearing that drum. So that is my association with the drum and with that power, and why it can transform and transmute so many things in us.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And, I've even been on hikes before where my clairaudience is very powerful. I can hear through realms very easily, and I'll hear that drum out in the middle of the woods, and I'm like, why am I hearing a drum? And so it's so powerful. And I know too, I've got some friends who have actually created their own drums, and I know that that's even more powerful because you're consciously connecting with each of the materials with the drum. I think he had an elk hide drum, and I noticed that different hides on the drum actually had different tones and different sounds. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, but it makes total sense to me that the medicine, if we talk about animal skins, the medicine of the animal that is used, it has a different frequency, has a different vibration, right? And so it is that power that, I mean, in the best sense, we as builders for these drums would kind of like hear what is the drum, what does it want to be, if that makes any sense, right? And then to ask an animal to receive the skin so that we can use it, right? And to be really conscious about everything that we use in the building process, if it's wood or leather, how you bind it in the back together, all these ingredients, you're really like, that would be my best sense of building a drum, and really asking for permission, receiving these gifts and building that instrument that is helping other people to really connect with that energy, right? And
Yeah.
maybe to just change the perspective a little bit, I have a bought drum which is just out of the box, really ordinary, right? So there's nothing special in terms of what we just talked about. Yet still, because of the energy that I bring and the journeys that I facilitate with that, and the places that drum has, that drum is so full of mana, would be the Hawaiian
Uh-huh.
energy word. It is so filled with all these very high energy places that this drum, even if it is out of a box, or had been, it's now filled with energy, right? So it doesn't have to be that. We can inform an object and really bring that energy to everything that we work with. Just for people who might think, yeah, well, I'd love to have my own drum, but I only have access to this one. And so it doesn't matter. It matters, but it really doesn't matter, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because it's all energy, frequency, and vibration, and the intention that you put behind
Yeah.
it. And I didn't even know you could even. I mean, I didn't even think you could make a drum. But when he said I made my own drum, and I'm like, let me hear that, and it was an elk hide, and I'm telling you, every little cell in my body was jumping, and I'm like, there is something with me and the elk hide. I don't know what that connection was, and then. When I had asked the gentleman who had done the sound bath years prior to that, he had said he had had an elk hide too. And I'm like, there must be a connection with me. And I like that you mentioned that there's a frequency behind it and how each animal brings that in. And so that kind of guides me into, you had mentioned totem animals. Martin, what are totem animals? I know for me, I really connect with animal spirit very, very much. And so when things are happening in my life, I'm really consciously aware of what animal spirits are in my external reality. And so can you talk a little bit more about what is a totem animal or a totem spirit?
So the totem or spirit animal in essence is our potential showing up in animal form. So when we do a shamanic journey and we specifically call our totem animal for the first time, maybe this is my one of my first journeys and I'm really interested in finding my totem animal, then that is our potential showing up in animal form. And it is oftentimes, I mean, we're here in a podcast where people can probably relate to that, similar to astrological chart or something, where we can read certain things out of it and it shows us a lot, but it doesn't mean our destiny is kind of like already written, right? So similar to the totem animal, my totem animal is a leopard. So one aspect of is it to really learn from that animal, what is its habitat, how does it eat, what does it hunt, how does it mate, what is its social environment? Is it more lonesome animal like the leopard is, or is it maybe a herd animal, or a pack or tribe animal like wolves and coyotes? So all these things give us an idea of how we live more in our highest potential, and to really see how does that resonate with me, and to not have it fixed in stone, but to always kind of see how can this animal teach me something. That is the one part. And the other part is that in our journeys, it is like our higher self sidekick in form of an animal that goes through these journeys with us and has oftentimes very wise things to say, or just supports us in being courageous in entering a situation that I might be afraid of, or not knowing what is going to come. So it is also that part of that higher self that is, because it is our full potential, right? It is that being of like all the filters, all the peeled away stuff that we have accumulated over time. I see myself, if I would be living that energy every day, 24/7, 365, I would probably be in an enlightened state, right? But I'm not. And so I receive this guidance from this animal, where I'm stuck, where I can let go of certain things, what I can introduce in my life that would benefit myself, of being more present, me being here in the now.
Yeah, that's really neat. And so I was feeling a cat on you. I was literally in my head, I was visualizing a cat. Mine is a tiger. And, there was a time in my life I had this interaction with squirrels all the time. I'd be out sitting in a chair, and one would jump on my shoulder, or it would, I just had all these interactions. And so that's when I started to learn about how animals play a role in messaging to us. And not even just in a shamanic journey, just in everyday life,
Yeah.
when you're seeing a lot of different in the animal kingdom coming about in your reality. And so I started to look it up, and it was a time in my life where I was beginning to, I was harvesting. I was kind of harvesting things. I was, creating things in my life. And, so it was just funny that the squirrel kept coming in. But Martin, I want to talk about the medicine wheel as well, because I know that there's different types of those. I've seen the labyrinth, I've seen the medicine wheels and different types, but can you talk a little bit more about what that is and how you incorporate those in your shamanic journeys?
So, similar to the shamanism in itself, we have to be aware that there is not one approach, because it kind of like existed in all the places all over the world, right? So people used nature and the perspectives of nature and the teachings of nature. And similar to that, there is not one medicine wheel. And the easiest way to explain that is that when we look at the medicine wheel that I learned, most of is from, or originated from, the Lakota,
Yeah.
and they have the animals that are the guardians, or the kind of like those um, keepers of that direction, or just representants. These animals, they are distinct in the different directions, just like a compass. And just for the argument's sake, there is the eagle in the east, we have the mouse, or sometimes the coyote in the south, and we have the bear in the west, and the bison in the north. And if we go to the Southern American medicine wheel that I also learned at some point, there are different animals. The attributes are in different ways, but the way how we work with the medicine wheel is very, very similar. How it gives us perspective and guidance, and how these different directions create that sacred space that we work with as shamans, or as people with that teaching. And so the way I use it is, most of all, when I created my program, I used the medicine wheel as a blueprint, and I thought about like all the journeys that I did. What do I want to help other people with when they go through this program? And with that intention, I really specifically put each journey in the progression of those 16 weeks according to that medicine wheel. And so we go through that. And I know that is, I was thinking about if I should ask you to omit that question, because because I feel I feel in these conversations, the medicine wheel is quite simple, but it's very, very sophisticated. And in order to give it the right amount of context, we would probably have to talk very much, or I would have to talk about that a long time, because this is still, after more than 10 years of learning and training with it, I still feel I'm just scratching the surface, right?
Yes,
But
we're
it is,
evolving with our knowledge.
yeah. And so it's basically the wheel of life, or a way how we go through circles. We go through a spiral, in a sense. We, in the teachings from the Lakota, we start in the east. That is where we begin. And so we go through the medicine wheel in a clockwise motion. And then when we end up in the north, we start over in the east again, you know? So it is that spirally motion, and there are so many different aspects we could use. The seasons, for examples, are in those different directions. The element are in those directions. And by having an understanding of what these attributes and these forces, these medicines are, I can understand when somebody talks in their journey about certain things, and we can use that direction to get a certain perspective. Let's say I want to understand more about my emotional well-being, or maybe certain things that I want to integrate. Then I know, as the teacher, we have to go into the south of the medicine wheel, because that's where emotion is as the
Oh,
quality, right? So this is how we work with it. And basically, it's really a very sophisticated system that helps us to orient us, just almost like a compass. So that comparison between north, east, south, and west is really, um, yeah, it's kind of like fitting, because it helps us to find orientation, right? Yeah,
yeah, and the medicine wheel dates back. It dates
yeah,
really far back, right? And so, I live in North Idaho in Eastern Washington, and so there is, I don't know about you, but I'm a big Sasquatch believer, and I've had my own experiences. And we had an experience where we had actually cleared this woman's land. She was having a lot of activity on her land that she couldn't explain. And so I went out with a lot of different sound modalities, drums and sound bowls and, different things. We cleared the land. And the next day, I'm not even kidding you, Martin, a medicine wheel appeared in her backyard. And so we were like, where did this go? Where did this come from? But it was a method of communication, is what we were picking up on. It was the beings of the land, the energy that was going on in this particular area where she lived. And after that, it started to really calm. And one of my friends who was there, she's Lakota. And she said, this is powerful. That just even the fact that a medicine wheel appeared, in the backyard, there's some sort of we healed the land, there was a healing that took place. And so it was really emotional. It was very powerful to know that we were communicating, and like shamanism, you're communicating through different dimensions, you're communicating in different frequencies and in different realms, so to speak, vibrations. And so that's what was happening when we were clearing the land. And so it was powerful. And the way they had made it with different elements of the land. And it was so obvious. It wasn't like, oh, this just magically, that, oh, someone made this or whatever. It just was so perfect the way that it was created. And I know, you said you were a little hesitant to talk about the medicine wheel. And I think just us as a civilization, we go deeper and deeper through our journey, right? And so what you and I may understand today, in a week from now, we may understand it differently. And I always say that my belief systems are changing all the time. And especially when I'm doing this podcast, because I'm meeting guests like you that are just expanding my consciousness more and more. And I'm like, wow, I've already changed, what I believe. And so I just visualize that medicine wheel as a spiral, and you just keep going deeper and deeper into your understanding of life.
yeah. And thank you for elaborating on that, because the element of the physical medicine wheel I didn't even talk about, right? I just talked about that metaphysical, but
Uh-huh.
absolutely, when we do some kind, like always, for me, if I go to a certain place, or if I align myself, that is also what we do with the medicine wheel. If we lay it in nature, we have these cornerstones, or we put these big stones in the four directions. And then if you're really intent on creating a medicine wheel, you also fill the whole circle, and then maybe you have lines to the center of the circle. But it's a very, very sacred, powerful place. And if for everyone who does a vision quest at some point in their life, they will spend their last night oftentimes in that medicine wheel and receive their vision, right? So it's a very, very powerful instrument. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, because I think I see the visual of the medicine wheel, and I love that you brought up the metaphysical, because I didn't even know that. I just learned from you. I was looking at it more from a physical standpoint versus a metaphysical. So just even, you sharing that with me is kind of activating me like, wow, there's even another layer to that. There's another
Yeah, and there's
spiral to
always
that.
another layer.
And there's probably someone out there who's like, hey, I have even another layer to that.
Yeah,
As they
that's
listen
what
to the show.
you just described. What my key takeaway of the medicine wheel is. Wow, there's another layer. So it's really these layers stacked on top of each other, and they're probably infinite, right? So thank you. Yeah.
It's funny. And so, Martin, every time I would communicate with you, you would say aloha. So I knew exactly where where you were. And so you have this, you say that your heart comes alive in near the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii, and you have this burning desire or a vision to create a sanctuary in Hawaii. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I can talk the rest of my life about this probably. So I'm usually finding the balance between. So the idea and the vision is that it's basically a place for people to come and heal, right? So um, because when we look at the way the state the world is in right now, it was at some point I understood the vision came really early on, many, many years ago, but I realized that the more and more trouble happened, and with all the things that we're struggling with right now, is that we on this earth probably need a lot of access, or many people need access, affordable access to these places of these refuges or sanctuaries. And so the idea is to create a network of pretty much open source sanctuaries, where it is we all are intent, we have that vision to create these healing places in the world, and not only to heal the humans but also to heal the earth with that, and to do it in a way where we share the knowledge, where it's not a franchise model where I'm building a sanctuary for with very distinct expensive retreats, but really to have it show up in a way where people can afford it, right? And to have it in a network where if somebody else feels like, well, Hawaii is nice, but my place of calling would be Portugal, or it would be in
Sedona.
Thailand, whatever,
Mhm.
it's somewhere in the world. And to say, well, I have this calling to build this, like, somewhere in the world. And it is probably similar to the Vipassana movement, right? Where people can go and join and do the meditation and do the course, and then they can donate afterwards. And if they don't have any money, that's also fine. So my because Hawaii is just that place where I just love to be. And you mentioned the ocean. It is, I've always been near the ocean as a kid in the vacation, and I love the ocean. But I think since I keep going back to Hawaii, I really realized how powerful this ocean and the element of water and the healing aspects and the teacher aspects of water and the ocean are. That is basically where we all come from, and to really be in that element more and more. And yeah, so it is really something that calls me, and it feels like a big project, to be honest. And I try to be really careful with these words, with these kind of like, it's difficult, it's big, it's going
Yeah,
to
because it
take
limits you,
forever.
right?
Yeah, but it feels like I know the property, and I've known it since I drove by, and it's in Kona on the Big Island, or Hawaii Island. And I drove by for the first time, and something rattled me. I didn't realize it at the time, but this property is still there in this way. It's sold. It's probably been sold more than once, but it's still there. And so I feel like it's just waiting, it's just ready. And so that is what's calling me in that sanctuary.
That's a beautiful vision. And, just stating to yourself, I attract the right people at the right time. You will not have to do all of that on your own. You will
Absolutely.
have all of perfect divine alignment. Everybody's just going to show up easily and effortlessly, and it's all going to take place. And, from an energetic standpoint, Hawaii is the heart chakra of the earth. And I recognized this recently. I've had several friends who have gone to Hawaii and they've come back and they're like, Tanya, I'm suffering with grief. I have so much grief going on. I'm like, it's Hawaii. You are healing all aspects of your heart. And I do feel, based off of where you need healing, you will be guided. The earth will guide
Yeah.
you. She will say, hey, I need you out here. Like, I lived in Florida for 20 years and I knew deep down in my soul I needed to move to the Pacific Northwest. I didn't really know why. And I didn't even know where. I just knew I was being really strongly guided. And so that's what landed me here in Eastern Washington, Northern Idaho. And I know it was because I needed to heal that connection with nature. I was healing that connection with water in Florida, but then moving out here to be more in the trees and the mountains. And there was a different connection there. And I feel my spirituality shifted from Florida to the Pacific Northwest. And I think when you travel to Hawaii, you'll have a completely different experience. And so there are times in our lives where we are being guided, and the people that are meant to be there with you in that sanctuary will also be guided there as well. And then you'll look back and say, wow, that wasn't difficult. That was so easy. And everybody came together with the perfect vision and the perfect intention. And I think a lot of us across the planet, Martin, are going through this right now, us as grid workers, so to speak. I know during the pandemic, I was just going to every single national park by myself, driving around, and I was healing. I was healing myself. I was healing the land. And when you do things like sanctuaries and put those together, like you said, you're not just healing the humans, we're healing the animals, we're healing the plants, we're healing Gaia, we're healing everything. And I think it's beautiful what you're doing. And thank you for coming on the show. I think this has been such a beautiful energy that you're bringing through, for the show. And I love nature. I love nature. And I love, for me, naturally being kind of pulled towards shamanism was very, kind of normal for me. Cause I'm like, I've probably done this many lives before. And that drum was just waking me up and saying, hey, you remember me?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And
was similar when I went to a retreat here and I saw one of the crystal skulls. There's only 13 crystal skulls, and one of the handlers of it, I had seen it and it had immediately communicated with me, and I had this emotion come over me and it felt similar to the drum. I was like, there's something with, all of these little pieces of the puzzle are coming together. And I know mine probably has to do with Lemuria, and it dates all the way back, and so that could be why many of us are being guided to the coast, as well. We're feeling that pull towards, where we used to be.
Absolutely. And just to maybe to affirm that and add something to that, I feel like I'm home when I'm in Hawaii, really. And it makes no sense. Everybody just who has never been there doesn't understand it at all. And those who know it kind of understand it a little bit. But this is just so hard to explain and put in words. It's just the feeling, right? It's just like, oh my God, I'm home,
Yeah.
So, and the energy that you mentioned is really challenging, like really. And it's not like I'm getting used to that. Every time when I get there, it's really like that. And each island has its different qualities, right? So the Big Island or Hawaii Island is that volcanic root chakra place that is really bringing up all that. I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with this,
Density.
right? So it is really interesting to see what happens with me and what happens with the resistances, and that it's in one way very gentle, how these resistances get dissolved, but in the other way, it's really no BS. There's no way you have to, like, I have to deal with this
Got to
because I
move
have
through
no
it.
other way. It's just like rising, rising, rising. And if I try to resist, it just gets worse and worse. Just like as you had to throw up, probably at some
Yeah.
point you just surrender and say, well, okay, I don't want to do it, but I have to, so that
I've
is,
heard that either Hawaii sucks you in and you stay, or it spits you out. It's one or
yeah.
the other, and it's based off of your frequency. Really, I do feel that, and there's been times in my life I've been guided to Hawaii, but I'm not sure I'm ready. I'm not sure I'm ready to experience that yet. I think I'm working on some things to move through that, and I know when Hawaii's calling me, there'll be no stopping me. It'll be really calling me in, very similar to how the Pacific Northwest was. Really, I couldn't shake it. It was nonstop in my dreams. It was on movies. It was showing up in
Mm-hmm.
my external reality. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, universe, I hear you. I'm supposed
Yeah.
to make this move. And so it'll be a matter of time. But I know when Hawaii calls me, I'll be coming, but
That's the
I'll be
way it is.
prepared.
Yeah.
Well, Martin, this has been wonderful. How can people learn more about you? How can they connect with you? And what types of services do you provide?
So Light Trails CO, lighttrails.co is my website. That is the best way to connect with me. And I'm doing currently, and I will be doing a webinar series. It's starting in June. So this is probably more likely to be heard around that time, where we do the elements. So we're visiting elements in the 4 directions of the medicine wheel, each element per week. And that is something that is free. Everybody can join who's interested in that. And other than that, just sending me a message or connecting in another way through maybe LinkedIn or social media. I'm not too keen on social media, so that's why I said lighttrails.co is the best way to do it. And other services, I have my one-on-one life program that I just mentioned, where we go through 16 weeks. It's a group program or a one-on-one, whatever people prefer.
And is that remote? That's online?
That's online, yeah. So
Great.
I've really, it was a discovery process and a really like a trial and error, but I was really surprised that this way opened up, right? So I thought I have to do this local, but then at some point I realized we can really do this. And so I'm working mostly online, also due to the fact that I'm moving. And I'm intent on moving between Hawaii, Norway, and Germany. So it was important for
Ooh,
me to do that, And so other than that, the free workshop, my coaching services that I offer, that's pretty much it so far.
that's great. And so, the neat thing about energy, it's like a Bluetooth, it's like a Wi-Fi, right? So
Yeah.
if you're located in Hawaii or Norway or Germany, you're sending a frequency to the people that you're working with. And I've got to say, Norway, I visited Norway about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was calling me home. I was like, I'm 5'11", not to mention I felt very normal there. I felt because in Florida, I was very tall. I was taller than the average person, where when I went to Norway, I kind of felt short, and I'm like, gosh, I felt just the land itself, the people, the trolls, like everything. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, all of
Mm-hmm.
these elementals, everything was just calling my name. And so I know I'll be planning a trip back to Norway, and even Germany for that matter. My friend's in Germany right now, and she's sending me these beautiful pictures. And I'm like, ooh, I got to go back to Germany. So Martin, it doesn't matter where you are, you're sending an amazing frequency out to all of the people, that you're working with, and they'll feel that, that's
Yeah.
palpable.
Thank you.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was wonderful, and for sharing all of your knowledge about the shamanic journey.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Aloha.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.